Hey guys, it's Chef Low bringing you another video for cooking on low. Today I wanted to go over a real easy sauce. It's bechamel. Bechamel is a mother sauce from France and Italy. There are 5 mother sauces. We're going to do bechamel today. Bechamel is just a very simple milk, roux, is all it really is. And we're going to show you how to make that. What you can make out of this sauce later, what I'm going to make today is I'm going to make queso dip. Okay, other sauces that you can make out of this: mac and cheese sauce, Alfredo, Mornay. You can make sausage gravy. All different sauces, that's why it's called a mother sauce, come from this. Most of your white cream sauces come from this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with butter and flour, and you want to get unsalted butter. Okay, you don't want to add any flavors in there that you don't know about. So I always buy unsalted butter, all-purpose flour. Okay, 1/4 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of butter, and then we're just using regular milk. This is 2% milk, 3 cups of it. Okay, and then other things I have out, I got some Velveeta. This is just a cheddar Monterey Jack mix. Okay, the other things I'm going to add are spices, not very many: salt, pepper, garlic powder, and chili powder for my queso dip. If you're making Alfredo, it's mainly it's nutmeg, salt, pepper, garlic, and usually like Parmesan. A Mornay is those items plus Gruyere cheese. That's what makes it a Mornay. For your mac and cheese, you can go with whatever cheeses you want to try. Salt, pepper, garlic, no garlic if you don't want it. But they're all pretty basically the same. It's just the type of cheese that we're going to do that's going to change what our sauce becomes. So, get our stove on. You want to use a heavy bottom pot, okay? Heavy bottom pot. So when you go to look at your pots, find one that's got a real thick bottom. If you want to be real safe, find a Dutch oven. Lodge makes them. I've used them in other videos. If you want to see my video on bread making, I use that Lodge pan a lot. That's a good one to cook from. I have, these are KitchenAid, very heavy bottom. I've had these for going on 10 years. But very heavy bottom pot. It helps control your heat, helps disperse the heat throughout the whole thing. You want to get medium heat. You want to put your butter in first. Okay, you're going to let this melt. As it melts, okay, we want to give it some stirs. People ask what you use to stir. For this sauce, some people say a wooden spoon, some people say a whisk, some people say go back and forth, others say spatulas. Me personally, I would go with a whisk. I like whisks for this sauce. Okay, so just gonna give it some stirs to help the melting. When you stir, you move heat around, which actually increases how quickly it's going to melt, or how quickly the bottom's going to heat up. If you're making a sauce or you're making a soup, the more you stir, the quicker it'll heat up. And all you're doing is moving the cold stuff from the bottom to the top, and that's what you want. Okay, so pretty much once it's melted, we're going to make a roux. To make a roux, take our butter that's melted and we pour our flour in and stir. Okay. Now, roux. The thing about roux is they're using a lot of things. They are a thickener. They're using sauces. They change from blonde to brown to amber. Amber is what you would use in a lot of Louisiana dishes. So gumbo, jambalaya, they want a nice amber roux, which is more of like a caramel color. So what we're going to do now is we've added our flour and we're going to stir. Okay, should be this paste. Looks solid, moves like a liquid. We're kind of cooking the flour right now. So about 2 minutes, maybe at the most. Okay, we stir it. The longer you let this sit, the darker it's going to get. We don't want it to get dark. We want it to stay nice and light. So we got a nice blonde roux. When you smell it, it should have the smell of baking bread. It should have, like I said, a nice consistency on how it looks. Okay, you've noticed it's getting a little chunkier, a little heavier. So what we're gonna do is we're going to add some of our milk, okay? So I don't wanna just dump this whole thing in. Okay, that'll make it really hard for the roux. So what I do is I use one of my bowls, I pour a little bit in, okay? And then I go into my roux stirring. And what you'll notice is it turns into a nice paste. Do a little bit more. Okay, almost resembles mashed potatoes. So at this point, I've kind of mixed it in. I'm gonna add the rest of my milk. Okay. So what I did there was called tempering. Tempered it in. Normally you do it a lot slower. The way I did it, it helps break up your lumps, so you don't end up with lumps of flour and butter. Just go through with your whisk, make sure you get the edges, stir really good, kind of get the bottom. You want to pull the stuff off the bottom as well. Whole time we're on medium heat, and at this point we want it to come up to a simmer. Okay, simmer temperatures, so boiling is 212. Okay, simmer is roughly 190 down to 175. In between that area. That's where you find out the difference between a light simmer, heavy simmer, light boil, heavy boil, rolling boil, or what those are at. So what we want is a very light simmer. Okay, we don't want this to boil. Just every now and then give it some stirs. Okay, as this heats up, it will start to thicken. Okay, we want it to thicken. That's what we're looking for. Okay, if you were going to stand here and stir constantly like this as fast as you can could turn up the heat, but I would suggest you not. Okay, we were making gravy for biscuits and gravy, so like a sausage gravy. We would start by browning our meat, and then we'd add a little bit extra butter, and we would add our flour and make the roux with the meat itself. At least that's how I do it. Then I usually add in the milk, and then I season. Okay, so this is a very basic bechamel, so I'm not seasoning right now. I'm going to season towards the end. Is what I'm going to do. Also depends on what kind of sauce I want to make out of this that determines my seasoning. Okay, so like I'm gonna make this into a queso, so I want to make it chili, cumin, garlic, salt and pepper, and my cheeses. Alfredo usually has nutmeg, usually a white Parmesan cheese. I think I mentioned it earlier, gruyere and garlic would make a good Mornay with some Parmesan as well. Trying to think of other white sauces. If you were to use chicken stock instead of milk, this would be a velouté sauce, or any stock really. Be a velouté sauce. That's another mother sauce. That's your kind of brown gravy. The other sauces, an espinole sauce, a tomato sauce, and then of course the hollandaise. Okay, these are all the other sauces that most sauces come from. So you're just letting that come up to temp is all we're doing. Alright, we've been stirring constantly. Some things you'll notice as you're stirring, you'll start to feel a little bit of resistance, okay, as it's thickening. Alright, if you know it, look, it already is thickening. Okay. Big thing about this is you want to stir pretty constantly. It will scald to the bottom, and if it burns, it'll make the whole thing taste like it's burnt. You don't want to burn it. Okay. We are moving into a simmer. You can see bubbles moving. So now what we want to do is let this simmer for about 5 minutes. Big thing here is we want to make sure we cook out any of that flour flavor, which we'll get to most of that, so it's not going to hurt it very much. So while we're doing that, I'm going to pull out my seasonings. Okay, other things you'll notice, you might get a film if you let it sit too long. Make sure you scrape the sides really good. All right, we've been simmering for about 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, so what I want to do now is I am going to add in my seasoning. So I'm going to turn my heat way down. Something people should know about cheese. Cheese melts at 160 degrees. Okay, so really, now that I have this up, some people will say take this up to a boil. The higher you cook it, the more it's going to thicken. It's also going to thicken as it cools, but cheese is also going to thicken it up as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my seasonings right here and stir those in. Okay, again, I'm making a nice queso cheese dip. And we all know how to make rotel dip, Velveeta and rotel. I like to use, it's a little higher, it's called Golden Velvet. It's a industry version of Velveeta. But the reason why I like it is it doesn't get, it stays creamy. I guess the best way to put it. So I'm gonna put in 1/3 cup of my regular cheese. Okay, I'm gonna turn off my heat. And then I'm gonna put in my other cheese, which I'm gonna stir it in and let it slowly melt in. At this point, you can turn your heat off. You can keep your heat on very low. If you want to break up your cheese beforehand, you can do that too. All we're doing is waiting on cheese to melt. Okay, if you're making mac and cheese, just that cheddar blend I threw in would have been suffice with some salt and pepper and garlic. But we're making queso, so we threw in that with some chili, with some cumin, garlic powder, salt and pepper, chili powder. I threw in a little more Velveeta because I like it to be creamy. I don't like it to be stringy when it comes to queso. You like that more with mac and cheese, although mac and cheese is pretty good creamy too. So my heat is off and I am slowly melting in my processed cheese, my Velveeta. Okay. And this should end with a nice velvety creamy texture. Okay, should be pourable, not stringy. Right. If you want more stringy cheese, you can add more cheese. If you want less stringy cheese, add less stringy cheese. This is just for queso. Okay. Same thing goes for your Alfredo, your Mornay-Add. Okay. Cheesy as you want it, cheesy as you don't want it. Mac and cheese sauce, cheesy as you want it. Big difference between the sauces though is the kind of cheese and the kind of seasonings. The thing to think about. Okay, the Mornay, the Alfredo sauces, they lend heavily on nutmeg, salt and pepper, and white cheeses. So a lot of Parmesan, gruyere, Swiss even sometimes. Whereas your mac and cheese and our queso here relies more heavily on the traditional yellow cheddar. Big difference with those two sauces. Queso obviously has a chili flavor, chili cumin, southwestern style, whereas your mac and cheese usually goes towards more of a garlicky salt and pepper blend. And then if you were making sausage gravy, sage and garlic would be your flavors that you get from your spices. So bechamel, real easy. Made it into queso. Serve it with chips, or you can even turn this into mac and cheese and serve it over mac and cheese with some ground beef. I will put recipes down below for all the sauces, not just the bechamel, but how to turn the bechamel into Mornay, Alfredo, sausage gravy, queso, and mac and cheese. So look down below for the recipes and enjoy cooking.